Hello geeks, and welcome to City of Geek Presents Seen Them All. One of the many things we have going on here at our website at cityofgeek.com. If you're finding us doing anything other than our website, it's, random searches on YouTube, so thank you for finding us. Thank you for listening to us. But we have many things going on. You can find us at cityofgeek.com or facebook.com/cityofgeek, and also find us on Twitter, which besides this, we'll also have our podcast. So check us out on SoundCloud or iTunes, along with posting everything onto the website itself. So you can find everything working on there. This is Seeing Them All, in which one of us, including right now, me, Bob, goes through an entire movie or television series, stopping after every entry to talk about what we've seen, to give our thoughts on that, on the whole, and on the series. Usually series we haven't seen, but it can be continuing into something. These can be binges, or these can be just as we watch through something, because we don't have the time to sit down and watch 15 entries of The Children of the Corn at once, nor would we ever want to, though it can be a fun experiment to binge. So if you want me to do that, to sit down and watch through an entire series of crappy movies just to watch me die, feel free to send me a message and maybe I'll do that. Give me $10, right? No, I'm kidding. We don't have a Patreon or anything like that. We just do everything for the fun of it. And today's series for Seeing Them All is Blake Edwards' The Pink Panther series. Now, I've had this big ass box set since about 2011, and I finally got to cracking it here soon. At the time I'm recording this, I have watched 4 of them, and I'm going to do them all here in one go, but I will continue to do them, update them as I watch. But yeah, it's a busy week, right? So I'm just going over what we do have in the set, what I'll be watching. Now, it's all really dirty. Like I said, I had this for 7 years, and it looks like this gathers fur and dust, and it's really hard to clean. So what this has is, it has not only this book, but 165-page book that kind of goes through the series, which I haven't seen this. This is all brand new to me as I've started that. Besides, I've seen Shot in the Dark, but that's about it. And then it comes with all sorts of discs. So this is what we'll be going over time. We have Pink Panther, Shot in the Dark, the only one I've seen. Spectre Clouseau, Pink Panther Strikes Again, Revenge of Pink Panther. This is what I've seen up to at this point. Trail, Curse, Son of, and then we get the first of the Steve Martin movies here. Doesn't include, I'm gonna go over here, The Return of the Pink Panther, which is actually, so I guess maybe 5 movies in? Yeah, I guess I'm actually 5 movies in, because I've watched up to that one. The Return of the Pink Panther, which is the 4th in the series. It doesn't include the Pink Panther 2, as I don't think it was out when this was actually published. I did pick it up, so we'll be getting to that in time. I've heard awful things about the Steve Martin ones, so we'll find out. What's interesting about these is, these all have Clouseau in them in some way, but these 2 were released after Peter Sellers died, and apparently they used some weird editing to make that work, so interesting to see how it goes. And this one has Roberto Benigni as the son. Besides the movies, this features a lot of cartoon discs, which I really look forward to watching, because I remember seeing a lot of these cartoons as a kid, but as a kid, I haven't seen them as an adult. We have 5 discs of the Pink Panther cartoons, which released somewhere between 1964 and 1980, I think was the last one. It's on this. There might be more since then. I need to look into that. Then along with the Ant and the Aardvark, 2 discs of the Inspector, so Inspector Clouseau cartoons, and then Roland and the Rat Fink, which I have no recollection of when I looked at this photo here earlier. I was drawing them in. So we'll see how these go. I probably won't go through the cartoons for this. I'll probably watch them in time. But this definitely will be covering all of the movies up to the Pink Panther 2 from, I think, 2011 is when it came out. So this disc set came out. So let's talk about the first film. The Pink Panther was released in 1963, and it's written by Maurice Richland and Blake Edwards. And Blake Edwards also directed this, as he did most of the movies in this series. As the time he might have handed over the reins to someone else, but this definitely is the series, because it says, for many of the entries, it says Blake Edwards is the Pink Panther. Him and Peter Sellers and all but a couple of the entries, as we talked about. And we'll get through those as the time comes through. Now, this was the first watch of this. I said I've seen Shot in the Dark, the 2nd entry, once before. So I kind of expected a lot more out of this. Actually, I was kind of a little bit let down. What we have in the plot here is the Pink Panther is actually a diamond with a little imperfection in it. It looks like a panther about to strike. And that's where the title comes from. So we have the Phantom, played by David Niven, who is a cat burglar, Pink Panther, who's trying to steal it from the daughter of royalty who has it, but she's trying to keep it on her own. And on the side we have Inspector Clouseau, played by Peter Sellers, who is trying to keep him from stealing it. Unlike the rest of the series, Clouseau is actually a side character in this one. There for a couple laughs, a couple spoofy moments. But this isn't the slapstick movies that this series would become known for, following Clouseau as he goes through, bumbles his way through a mystery. And it's obvious why it moved to him after this one, because Peter Sellers as Clouseau is easily the best part of the film. His bumbling, but he's not as bumbling as he gets later on. There is a little bit of flanderization for his character, and it works in his case, but we'll get to this as the time comes by. Now in this, as a side character, he's not only trying to keep the Pink Panther diamond from being stolen by the Phantom, he's also trying to desperately have sex with his wife. Now his wife is also sleeping with the Phantom and a couple other characters in there. So the main funny bit of the movie is a scene in which he's in his room and she's in the Phantom's, and they're trying to move in out of each other's rooms. He's trying to balance all these guys coming in to have sex with her. But it weird because it moves kind of slow in this case. Like I watched a lot of Marx Brothers movies recently, and that's quick pacing. Here it's kind of just moving, kind of moves along. And that's the thing for this. The pacing is really slow for the jokes. Pacing is really slow for the gags. It's more based on the people's situations and just people sniping each other than it is over people falling down, or Clouseau falling down, as it mainly turns out to be, leading to a kind of slow mystery with some jokes, but the mystery isn't all that good. The character moments maybe fit better in the 60s than they do now. Ultimately, it is a little bit of a letdown, but I can see where the series came from and why it works later on, because Peter Sellers as Clouseau is easily this movie's star. He easily steals it, and you can see that as they move into the next couple series. Just less than a year after Pink Panther was such a huge hit, they immediately put Shot in the Dark in production. It might have actually been in production before Pink Panther came out and made the splash, but this was released about 9 months later, so we did have a quick production time. In many cases that would show, but actually Shot in the Dark is the best of the series so far out of the 5 that I've seen. This is the only one that I had seen before, as I noted earlier. Found it to be really funny. I didn't remember a lot of the details, so it was almost like watching it new. As this does have a title, it doesn't include Pink Panther in it. This doesn't include the Phantom or the Diamond from the original film, now focusing on Clouseau. Now, still played by Peter Sellers to great hilarious effect, and bringing a lot of the elements that would come into later in the series, such as his manservant slash martial arts partner Kato, who he gets to attack him that Clouseau gets to attack him at any point, saying you have to keep always on my guard, and leading to these huge fights throughout the series of knockdown, drag out fights as they destroy everything nearby. As a continuing running gag that we see here, we have Herbert Lom as Inspector Dreyfus for the first time, and he'll be continuing throughout the series, along with bringing Clouseau to the forefront, making him a little more klutzy, making him a little more unsure of what's going on. Well, he's absolutely sure he knows what's going on, which a lot of the humor comes in that he's just bumbling his way through things, and everyone's just kind of cleaning up his mess as they go along. Eventually he ends up solving any case that he's on through sheer luck and stupidity. He's probably the luckiest guy to exist in the world. And oddly enough, as part of the series, is actually based upon something outside of the series. In this case, a French play called L'Idiot, written by Marcel Archaud, which is then adapted by Harry Kernitz into an English play. And then that play was adapted by both Blake Edwards, who wrote and directed this, as well as other entries in the series, along with William Peter Blatty, who wrote the Exorcist book and the Exorcist movie, along with Night Configuration, Exorcist 3, a bunch of other amazing things there. So it's really weird to see him attached to a comedy script, because usually you see him as part of something horror. I don't know how much is him and how much is Edwards in this case. I don't know if they worked together, both took different stabs at the script. Like, he wrote an adaptation that then Edwards then rewrote. I didn't look into this, so you can if you want. Maybe I will and just put up a little annotation. But this is easily the best of the 5 I've seen so far, and so I'll fill in as I get there. What we have is a murder mystery in which someone's been murdered in the estate of a rich man, who was played by George Saunders from Rebecca and All About Eve, and Clouseau shows up on the case to try and solve it, and he's all the fingers are pointing at a maid who had a relationship with this driver, who was the one who was always the gardener, one of the two, in which everyone thinks it's her. She was caught with the gun in her hand in her room. Everything points to this, but he's convinced because she's pretty that she's not it, because he's immediately falls in love with her. He's like, no, I need to do everything I can to prove that it's not her. And then all the stuff that comes around that. If he releases her, he's taking on the case, taking off the case, taking on the case. Every time everything happens, something bigger happens, and it throws off Dreyfus, his boss, who gets completely exasperated by everything that Clouseau is doing. There's a lot of amazing running gags in this as he works. I'm trying to be vague so I don't ruin the jokes for you. It's a really broad comedy in that way, which is a lot of slapstick, a lot of falling over, Clouseau wondering his way through things, clumsily falling downstairs, falling into fountains, falling across rooms, as he tries to find his way to the bottom of this case. Now, Clouseau is played by Peter Sellers, and he's pitch perfect. His timing is top notch. The way he delivers his lines is absolutely perfect. It's not just the lines being funny and everyone relating to him, but how he says them. He's pertinent, so he's putting a bad French accent and everything, which is what's part of the joke. It's kind of being a comedy. It's hard to explain why it works as a comedy, because that's something that's very subjective and has to be seen in the moment. If I describe someone falling over on a curb and flying on the back of their face, it sounds bad, but it's the way it's done. Comedy is all about timing and setup, but the timing and setup are perfect across the board from both Sellers and everyone else involved. Everyone is game. It's fun to watch Herbert Lom just build up insanity over everything that Sellers is doing as Clouseau, as he just beats up against this wall again and again and again. There's an extended sequence where Sellers takes out the accused maid on a date to try and figure out people he thinks are actually killing it, and someone is trying to kill them during this date, causing a bunch of other people, about 8 other people, to get killed and shot, run over, stabbed, as he just cluelessly wanders his way through everything that's happening around him. I can't recommend Shot in the Dark enough. You don't need to see the Pink Panther to see it. You can watch it on its own. It completely stands as its own feature. For the longest time, I actually thought this was the first in the series. So it was really, when I went to watch these, I was surprised to see it. The Pink Panther came out first. I presume that the rest of the series came out after that. Just maybe because the way it's presented, but it's in being its own thing put into there. So check out A Shot in the Dark. After just 9 months between the Pink Panther and Shot in the Dark, it's really surprising to see there's a wait of 4 years before the next entry in the series. And also, it's kind of an anomaly to see that Blake Edwards wasn't involved in this. Neither was Peter Sellers. This is Inspector Clouseau, starring Alan Arkin as the famous character, and directed by Bud Yorkin, and written by Tom and Frank Waldman. It is completely different in many ways than the rest, but it does kind of fall into the spirit, and it is considered canon within it. It's in the box set. It's listed as part of it throughout, and plot elements that bring up this one do follow up later, apparently. With only a 35 on Metacritic, it's not a well-received entry. I think a lot of that falls to the fact that Clouseau is not played by Peter Sellers in this entry. As I said, it's Alan Arkin, but actually, I kind of liked it a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. Alan Arkin actually does a good job imitating Sellers being Clouseau. He doesn't make the character his own. He does what's expected. He almost actually kind of looks like him in some parts. But in many ways, it is a caricature of the character. It's someone doing an impersonation of that. It's kind of doing an impersonation of a celebrity impersonation on SNL. So it is a little bit taken out in that way, and you kind of wish you see Sellers. But I honestly think he did a funny job. His timing was good. His character work was good. The plot itself is okay. It's with he's sent to Britain to stop a bunch of bank robberies that are taking place. Those bank robberies then use his face to do those robberies. So leads to a couple sequences where he arrives somewhere right after a robber pretending to be him just left, leading to confusion between all parts. And that's where a lot of the humor lies here, is just the confusion of what's happening, because he's a little more bumbling and clueless. Like, than he normally is in the other entries, including the previous two. But ultimately, it does lack a lot of the charm and focus that we get on the other entries, moving at a different speed, because it's different. Timing is a little different. The character work is a little bit off. A lot of it is the verbal humor. Arkin isn't quite as good with the physical humor that Sellers is. It's still a fine entry to the series. I liked it better than the first Pink Panther. Of course, I don't like it nearly as much as Shot in the Dark. And I do, compared to what comes later on, the ones I've already watched, it does kind of pale a little bit. I'm not sure how much I'll watch this one again, but we'll see as time goes by. It's a short entry, but not a lot to say about this movie. Our next entry is the return of the Pink Panther, which is the return in multiple ways. First of all, most importantly, Clouseau is now played by Peter Sellers again, returning after many years off. Now Alan Arkin has stepped back again, and then written and directed by Blake Edwards. In addition, we do have the return of the Pink Panther Diamond of the title, along with the Phantom. Not played by David Niven anymore, but now played by Christopher Plummer of Sound of Music fame. Also returning is Herbert Lom as Chief Inspector Dreyfus, Clouseau's boss, and a man obsessed with how bad Clouseau is at his job and is driven insane. He had a lot to do with the actions of A Shot in the Dark, and now he comes back here for a repeat role, and we'll see him more as the series progresses, as more as the chief antagonist, along with the chief inspector in this here, as he continually gets flummoxed over everything that Sellers is doing to impede this investigation, or he thinks is impeding. So what happens is the diamond is again stolen. Someone leaving a glove that looks like the original stealer of the Pink Panther of the first film. The Phantom has returned, but it turns out he's retired and he's just trying to live on his own, not being a jewel thief anymore. So now we have him back on here trying to figure out what's going on, along with Clouseau, who's trying to solve the case, along with an assassin trying to kill Clouseau the entire time and kill the Phantom. There's a separate organization that is leading behind everything else, but ultimately the plot doesn't really matter in this. We know everything's gonna get worked out. We know everyone's gonna meet up. It's really more about the gags and the laughs. The film is still very funny. It's great to see everyone back in action and interacting and moving around. Sellers brings it all back to Clouseau to remind us of why he is the main person to play that character and how amazing he is with it. His timing is perfect again. The sheer destruction that goes around him is amped up to the next level. Every sequel, you gotta make it bigger to keep people coming back, right? Added more in this time is Clouseau pretending to be other people with fake disguises, fake mustaches on top of his own mustache, and other sequences evolving around that as he's a little clueless to how everything turns out and how everyone's reacting to them. How he's not really a threat to the people really looking for him, to the wife of the Phantom, who he's trying to get really close to try and get back to the Phantom as the Phantom figures out his own thing. Christopher Plummer is pretty funny in there, but he's more of a straight man compared to everything else happening around him. Dreyfus is Herbert Lom's Dreyfus is up to the next level. Like Benitez, I don't have a lot to say, unfortunately. It's been a couple days since I watched it, so the jokes kind of slid away from me. I will have more to say for the upcoming entries, because I'm going to do these videos as soon as I watch them. After the return of the Pink Panther was a huge success, the Pink Panther Strikes Again was pushed into production just as A Shot in the Dark was after the Pink Panther, in order to, strike the iron while it's hot after instead of waiting 7 years, 12 years, however you want to look at it, depending on how much you count Touch of Clouseau as part of the series or not. And actually, I really like this one. I laughed a lot harder than I did in some of the previous entries, but with the caveat that it is a little simpler. They're more directly winking at the audience. It seems more set up, like each gag seems like, oh, I know exactly where this is gonna go, but so everyone is game. Peter Sellers is still giving everything maybe a little less subtly than before for a not very subtle character, where in some ways it does feel like everything is just set up for the gags, but in other ways it's plot-wise, this has former Chief Inspector Dreyfus escaping from the lunatic asylum he was put into at the end of the last film, as he threatens to destroy the world with a device which deletes buildings from existence. There's a scene in which he takes out the UN building by firing a pink ray at it that deletes it. That pinkness is the only real part that has to do with the Pink Panther, because the diamond nor the Phantom is actually part of this. It's more of, in this case, is continuing the title, including the cartoon character who we see at the beginning of the film, and various cool entries into him and Clouseau. Throughout, I haven't mentioned them before, but there's cartoons at the beginning each of the movies, which has a animated version of Clouseau trying to capture an animated Pink Panther as they go through various situations. And then, of course, there's a whole series of cartoons about that, as we saw in the booklet that I showed at the beginning of the video. In this case, as a film lover, I did appreciate the humor of inserting the Pink Panther and Clouseau into famous film scenes, such as The Sound of Music, and at the end we have Jaws and a couple other ones throughout. It's like, oh, it's fun to see that. They are essentially just like, hey, here's the thing, you know, references, but what the hell, it worked to me in this case. So anyway, Dreyfus is threatening the world if Clouseau's dead body isn't delivered to him, which leads to a lot of people trying to chase after Clouseau, who's of course as clueless as always, as he tries to find out where Dreyfus is so he can bring him back to justice, unawares of all these people dying behind him, killing each other to try and kill him. But Clouseau is essentially, even though I mentioned he's going after Dreyfus, is really more looking for the scientist that Dreyfus stole, kidnapped, whatever. Same thing. Stealing a person. Including, so there's a lot of great sequences around that. One that I laughed very hard at, which he's searching through his the professor's house, trying to find out some clues. He wanders to an exercise room, has a little bit on treadmill and this and that, and he's flipping around on parallel bars when he flies over the edge and crashes down a staircase into a room. Has all the employees of the professor, and he interrogates them, and they don't misunderstand him, can't understand his accent, tell him different things, and so you have a little bit of slapstick humor there, along with word-based humor and misunderstanding humor. So everything's thrown there. It is kind of everything's thrown against the wall, seeing what sticks, and most of it does stick. I was a little concerned about the giant laser beam that destroys the UN, and it seems much different than a series about diamonds and kidnappings and one-off murders than it does a cackling villain. But as I said, this is a little more direct, a little bigger. So everything is bigger and grander, but I still laugh my ass off. I laughed more than I did, and everything is since shot in the dark. It's a weaker movie, but it's a funnier movie. It's a continually funny series, and now I've caught up to everything I've seen coming into this. So yeah, each time I watch something, it'll be all fresh, new, not as vague. I can go into more of the details and also give a fresher opinion without knowing what's going to come. And we're back. I have just finished watching 1978's The Revenge of the Pink Panther. More of the revenge against the audience for liking this series so far. From that note, you'll say that I didn't much care for this entry. I'm going to keep this one short because there isn't a lot to talk about. Before I talk about that, I actually will go back and say I just, between watching the Pink Panther Strikes Again and this one, The Revenge of the Pink Panther, I did go back and watch the first movie again with the commentary and the trivia track that is on the disc. So far, the only special features upon this set. Now, Shout Factory put out a Blu-ray edition of the collection last year. I'm not sure if they had anything else. Knowing Shout Factory, they probably did, so check that out if you're interested. But I don't know what's on there. I haven't looked it up. Eventually, I'll pick up that set to replace this DVD, but since it took me 6 years to watch these DVDs, probably a few more years before I get the Blu-rays. And I do appreciate the first Pink Panther more after watching the commentary track and the trivia. It's still not the greatest. I still love Shot in the Dark best, but it definitely increased a notch here. I found myself laughing more, getting into it a little more, maybe just third time through me. My body's like, hey, you're gonna like us more now. But either way, so I'm slightly changing my opinion on the first Pink Panther. I'm not going to record the first part again, so I'm glad to sit for what it was for after watching it. But now we're going to talk about the Revenge of the Pink Panther. I keep looking over because I can't remember exactly what it's called, because I always have similar titles: Revenge, Return, Strikes Back, The Empire Strikes Back, and so forth. So this is 1978, and this is the last that Peter Sellers did for the series before he passed away in 1980. One of the last films he did, he had like 2 or 3 more credits after this, and it's sad that this is the last of the Pink Panther films he directly filmed, because the next one, Trial, which I'll be watching soon, next couple of days, does use him from cutscenes from other movies, particularly the one I just watched. After, as much as I enjoyed the last movie, which I felt ultimately the humor was kind of childish and a step down, I still had a great time. For this, everyone feels kind of tired. They feel out of place. And a lot of the humor simply doesn't work, both in 1970, in our terms now in 2019, and also looking back in 1978. I'm just gonna say here that a lot of the humor revolves around Inspector Clouseau dressing up in more stereotypical outfits, and this gets really cringy, Fu Manchu, Chinese sort of way. That doesn't really bring any jokes to it. I understand looking back from now compared to 1978, you have to look at things differently. You have to look at what was more acceptable at the time, and even looking at that, the humor isn't there. It's leaning on the joke of, look, he's in a costume. Later on, he's in a Italian stereotype with his big shoulder pads and he just looks uncomfortable. Just throwing out, spaghetti, pasta to people who just understand he's Italian. That wouldn't actually work in this case because he's not actually fighting off, an idiot like he is Dreyfus in the last couple entries. Who Dreyfus actually returns in this one, and apparently he didn't die when he was transmogrified into space. Whatever happened to him with the diamond. But actually, he's actually one of the few funnier parts in this. Herbert Lom does return, escaping from the asylum again. Oh, he gets let out of the asylum after Clouseau is thought to be dead by their French connection, they're trying to kill him to prove that they're important, and now someone else gets killed in his place after a transvestite joke, which also doesn't work in today's time, in which he's kidnapped by a woman who turned out to be a man in dress, makes him change clothes with him. That person ends up crashing into a tree and dying. They assume that it's Clouseau, and then Clouseau, now in the woman's dress, is now put into an asylum, which he has to escape from, and then prove that he is in fact alive, and uses the fact that they think he's dead to try and get back to them. But there's not really a lot of plot. That's the basis of it. It's more of an excuse to get him to go around the world and imitate these other cultures. The humor isn't there. There's no big set pieces. There's a couple smaller ones, but none of them really flow. They all just feel like we've seen this before, and no one really cared. So there's quick buck, put this out and make some money, go on to whatever feature we're working on next. I think, this time Sellers is really trying to get Being There off the ground. Maybe this is one of the steps he had to do to get there. I still haven't seen that movie. I've heard amazing things, but eventually I'll get around to watching that. Not part of the Pink Panther series, just watching it on its own. But on the plus side again, Kato does have a lot more to do instead of just coming in for 2 scenes to fight for big set pieces around the apartment. We do have a little bit of that. There is a set piece for someone who thinks he's fighting Kato, but he's not. He's fighting. That actually does get a couple laughs because it's I like slapstick. I like hijinks. But that's only the main part of that. But Kato, since they do go to Hong Kong, does get a little more to do. He has his own pieces and own interactions with other people. There's a point where that takes place in a brothel because he goes to find Kato after he escapes. That's also kind of awkward because it's going into various stereotypes. And then he meets a dominatrix, and then starts yelling about women belong in the home. And I don't know if that's meant to be a joke or if Clouseau was actually saying that, which is kind of cringy. It's a lot of cringy stuff that honestly I don't think it would have worked in 1978 because there isn't the humor behind it, and there isn't the humor now. So this definitely is the weakest one in the series. Even the not so good entries before, like with Dr. Clouseau, I found stuff to like from the continuing jokes, some of the characterization, but none of what I loved in the previous films is present here. We'll see where things go. From what I can tell, when I've heard, the rest of the series kind of really goes downhill even more with Trail and Curse, Sun, and then the Steve Martin 2, which as I said earlier, this is the first time watching the series, so we'll see how things go from that. But Revenge of the Pink Panther, because I almost said Trail of the Pink Panther. Revenge of the Pink Panther, not a solid entry. Even the cartoon at the beginning is really lacking. It's just Clouseau and the Pink Panther kind of is fighting off a little bit, underdone spy versus spy sort of things. Not a lot of cleverness there, not a lot of cleverness in the actual movie. Everyone seems tired, doesn't want to be there, not a lot of efforts put in, not a lot of effort came out of it. I think this one didn't do very well at the box office either. And it's fortunately the last of Peter Sellers as the character, in control of what he's doing for the character, since he passed away between here and the next film. And we're back from the Trail of the Pink Panther, the 1982 posthumously produced for Peter Sellers film in the series, the last one featuring Sellers in any form, but still featuring him. As I noted in the previous review and right now, Sellers died in 1980. This came out in 1982. It's an oddball of a film since it was started production 2 years after he was dead. There are other films such as Almost Heroes or Game of Death, movies that the main actor had died during the filming and they had to work around. In this case, this was built from the ground up with Sellers long in the ground. Ha, bad puns. Yeah, forgive my jokes there. As much as I had complained about Revenge of the Pink Panther, this one is even more to complain about. This series, I guess, is just as dead as Sellers was. There's still a couple more features to go, but as it was, I have lost any of the fun that I've had watching the previous entries. I get to watch a lot of the previous entries again because a lot of this is not just outtakes from Pink Panther Strikes Again, but it's a clip show of the first from the first movies in this series. The film begins with the stealing of the Pink Panther diamond again, as often happens, and then then it goes to an outtake from Pink Panther Strikes Again. I had to go down and look, as I said before, these titles are all kind of interchangeable, in which he's getting fitted by Harvey Korman's Mr. Balls, the person who makes him his disguises, which is obviously the first half of the scene when she gets the Hunchback of Notre Dame disguise that he uses in that film when he sings with Kato. It's obviously that because that's the pieces he's getting, but it's made to seem like something new, a new costume piece he's getting. After this long sequence goes on with him and Harvey Korman, there's an explosion and he's thought to be killed again. This time Robert Loggia and a different syndicate are trying to kill him, in which at this point he goes into hiding, but some people keep interacting with him, and it's really weird because every time it cuts, he's always by himself. He's never interacting with anyone else who's on screen because everything else is being filmed new to film this new story. And then after that, he fakes his death in a plane crash, and again, and then he, on his way to the place that the diamond was stolen from, the fake country. After that, it becomes a reporter looking for him and getting stories from the Prowler, the Phantom, sorry. Played again by David Niven, from Robert Loggia, from a bunch of other people who are telling stories about Clouseau. So that's point it becomes the previous films just edited again in a clip show, which is, I haven't really seen that in a movie before, besides maybe, I haven't seen that Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, but apparently the first half of that is just Silent Night, Deadly Night 1. It kind of feels like the same way. In fact, I think it's also 1982. So maybe it's a bad year for that. But a great year for me, because that's when I was born. This is just a clip show. I maybe just want to watch the originals again, the things that I missed. You saw a lot from Shot in the Dark, you saw a lot from Pink Panther, and no mention of Inspector Clouseau. None of the clips are from that one with Alan Arkin. Now I'm going to cut it off here because nothing really to say. I'm going to show you clips of my mess ups from the outtakes from the first half. And then now next we go into 1983's The Curse of the Pink Panther. So I'll see you in a second after I watch that. And we return with our second video for the day, because it looks like I'm doing a double feature, maybe even triple feature. I might be watching Son of the Pink Panther today as well, depending on time. But for now, I did just finish Curse. Right after finishing this video, the last video, I went ahead and just put that on. And I kind of wish I didn't, and I wish I had spread this out, because I am in for a world of hurt today, apparently. Because this one isn't a good one either. At least, we're not using any old Peter Sellers footage. We're not using any Peter Sellers footage. I'm not going to go and bother to fix that. Because they didn't care, so why should I, right? Instead, we have an American who's coming in to try and look for Clouseau after being missing for a year's time. His name is Ted Wass. Ted Wass, yes. And he is god-awful. Like, it's a charisma suck, as Kim likes to say about other people. They're attempting to make him into Moo Clouseau by having him be his buffoonery, almost exactly like him, based upon a computer that calls people Dave. It's how, like, it goes and finds this particular guy to replace Clouseau, to look for Clouseau. And he ends up finding him, no surprise there. That puts him in the same kind of situations where he's out of his element, wandering into things with other people trying to kill him. He's completely oblivious. And he's just, but he doesn't have the same energy that Sellers has, not by a long shot. It's a very tiny percentage. He's played by Ted Wass, who have not seen another thing exception of Soap, which he was on for 77 episodes. Apparently he played the dad on Blossom, which show I remember watching from the 90s, but I don't really remember much of it. This is again written and directed by Blake Edwards, along with a couple people have story credits for characters from previous films. But it's mainly Edwards trying to just like beat this dead horse of this franchise. There's a couple sequences that almost work, that I feel that if the timing is a little better, with maybe a different director who seemed to have a fresh take on things, it might have worked. But for the most part, it's dead in the water. We do have Roger Moore popping in for a minute as a new, well, I'm gonna spoil there, which Clouseau has his face rebuilt. That way we can still see him on screen one more time. In this case, he's now played by Roger Moore, as looking like Roger Moore, which is it's a fun joke in there. So it's cool to see for a few minutes Roger Moore do Sellers' mannerisms, and he does them better than the other person who pretends to be Clouseau before he takes off the mask. Takes off that, and much better than Ted Wass. But the jokes aren't there. The charm isn't there. It's kind of a dead franchise. After this, it takes a 10-year break before you get Sun, and I'm gonna go watch Sun maybe today, maybe tomorrow, but I'll be back with the review for that. And we're back. I ultimately did not do a triple feature of Trail of Pink Panther, Curse of the Pink Panther, and then Sun. I did wait a couple days, and now I watched Sun now, and I'm really glad I didn't watch it then, because I would have been really, really angry, because watching 3 awful movies, awful comedies in a row would be a very bad way to spend the day. Now I'm snowed in, so might as well catch up on some of these movies. So I'm watching this today and follow up with the Steve Martin one here in a few minutes. But I did want to drop in with my notes on the Son of the Pink Panther, which I have here on the desk. I'll put that up there. We see Roberto Benigni putting on the well-known costume, which he wears for about a scene, about an hour, and once you find out he's Clouseau's son. Yeah, so it's 1993. It's about 10 years since since the Curse of the Pink Panther cursed the franchise and killed it. But I guess Blake Edwards needed some money, so here we are. He wrote and directed this new one. Writing team with Madeline and Stephen Sunshine as well. Names I'm not too sure on. I'm not gonna go and look them up, because based upon this, I don't want to know anything else today, because this is bad. I used to like the series a lot, and now I'm slowly hating it as we go along. Each entry has been worse than the last. After topping out earlier, as mentioned in other videos, not gonna repeat myself there. So why is this one just as bad? It's just the humor isn't there anymore. Without Clouseau, without Peter Sellers, it doesn't work nearly as well. Roberto Benigni tries so hard, but his brand of comedy you think would match up based on what we've seen him in other movies, but unfortunately it doesn't. It's a lot of just more standard slapstick, but really badly set up, and it's obvious mugging, obvious I'm gonna fall over at this point, I'm gonna do this, and it doesn't work, especially since he's a very vocal comedian as he's doing what he's working on, so therefore he's telling you the joke as it's happening, rather than just letting it go. The things that do work here is we do get to have Herbert Lom again as Dreyfus, who comes across him while searching for the diamond is stolen again, but that's still could be pointless again. This time by Robert Davi, who's normally a pretty damn good bad guy. Doesn't get a lot to do, doesn't get a lot to play with here. Just more of a react to everything that's happening around him and be menacing. It's around a couple years after he was the villain in one of the Bond movies, and it's definitely nowhere near the level of that, even as much as that one wasn't all that good of a Bond film. But yeah, Herbert Lom does get to react to everything that's happening, and so he gets some moments there. I liked seeing Kato come back, though he doesn't have anything to do really. A lot of times it comes to like, hey, this thing you remember from before, this person you remember. Speaking of people remember, we do get the woman who played the princess in the first movie, who now is playing the character that Elk Summers played in Shot in the Dark, Maria Gambrelli. So she changed characters from one movie to the next, and now it's because she's the mother of Clouseau's son. After Shot in the Dark, they had a night when they were stuck in the French lodge somewhere, and Boom, they had a kid. Not really a relationship, just the kid who inherited everything from his father, nothing from his mom. But yeah, this isn't funny. There's moments that they're really trying, and they're trying hard. It just bombs. But I remember this is the first one that I even heard of. I remember seeing it back in the 90s when video stores still a thing. Occasionally you find video stores in gas stations, and one of the local gas stations are convenient marts in Wheeling, West Virginia, where I grew up. First couple years of my life there. I remember seeing the standee with this, and they were really pushing it. And our grandparents looked at it and was like, no, you won't understand the series, because I tried to because I saw the cartoon, remember the cartoons, and watched them on TV, and recognized the Pink Panther, and tried to rent it, and of course our grandparents were like, no. But we're going to leave it at that. I'm going to follow up here soon with 2006's the Pink Panther remake-ish. I think it's more of a reboot of the series more than a remake of the first film, but honestly, I don't know. I know Steve Martin's playing Clouseau, and Kevin Kline is Dreyfus, and that's two people I usually love to see in everything, so as much as everything else might be awful, at least hopefully they'll be great. Kevin Kline always brings a little joy in my heart whenever I see him in anything. So we're going to check that out, and I will follow up after I finish that. Thank you. And we're back after finishing 2006's version of the Pink Panther, starring Steve Martin, Kevin Kline, and written by Lynn Bloom and Steve Martin, and directed by Sean Levy. Now, I obviously, as you're watching this video, you know I've seen all of the movies up to now. Many of these for the first time, including this one today, and I think I watched more of them than anyone involved in this version has, because this feels nothing like the previous movies. It's actually a little better than the last couple. I did have some laughs out of it, but tone-wise, jokes-wise, how everything's set up, it's much more, it's broader, it's more in your face, as broad and as often direct as the humor was as that series went along with Peter Sellers. At least it never really was all that winky. Here this is a joke. Here's the joke, we're gonna throw this at you, and not letting anything sit and anything go out without trying to make it even more goofy, as if they don't think the audience is gonna be along for the ride. Steve Martin is a good pick for Clouseau, and he's trying so hard, trying harder than the other pseudo Clouseaus of David Weber, whatever the hell his name was, from Curse, or Roberto Benigni last time, but it's still an impersonation. In fact, there's a line in the movie where he says, is this thing real? Talking about an urn they have stuck on his hand, and the person he's speaking to says, no, it's a cheap imitation. And my thought there was like, yeah, this is a cheap imitation of the Pink Panther series. This is a direct remake of the first one. It could almost be another sequel if Peter Sellers was still alive, Blake Edwards was still directing. When he's still alive, he since died between Pink Panthers 1 and 2, but he had retired after the 1995 television remake of Victor Victoria, which he directed the original as well for that one, in which here the Pink Panther's been stolen again, this time with Jason Statham's hand. Beyonce is thought to be the killer, along with a couple other people might be, and they're trying to figure out who did it in this case. So we're changing the background, but if you change a couple of the details, this could actually just be Pink Panther 7 or 8 or whatever number we're at now. Kevin Kline's is incredibly wasted as Dreyfus. He doesn't have anything that Herbert Lom already brought to it previously. Knowing Kline, I expected a build to insanity, and it's almost there, but it seems like we need too much into just the very basis of it. Everything is just the very basics. This is incredibly shallow base humor. There's some fart humor in there, which doesn't fit with the series at all. I'm not a big fan of fart and scat humor. It could be done really well on certain gags, certain build. But here is just like, oh, this booth is soundproof. Yes, he goes inside and farts and comes back out and continues. There's nothing to it. Jean Reno is playing the Cato role as someone who's trying to attack, who's working with Clouseau, and Clouseau asks him to attack him at times, and they're going to do that. And it's played definitely a little more for laughs. There's humor out there of him attempting, but it's just broader. It's like someone watched the previous ones or heard about the previous ones and wrote what they felt they should be like to a more modern audience that they're not trusting. And that's the main issue here, is that we're not just trusting the humor to go along with what's presented, but it has to remind you this is a comedy. So next up will be Pink Panther 2. I might be watching that today. I might save it out, but we'll see where things go from there. But one more of these movies, and then I am done. I'm starting to feel like Dreyfus and starting to go insane. And we'll see where things go from here. Thank you. I'm free! I'm free! Oh, thank God. I'm done. I'm done with this series. Oh, fuck, yes. Actually, not completely done. I still got cartoons to watch. But I'm done with the movie series for the Pink Panther. I just finished watching Pink Panther 2. Right there. That shows, obviously, what I think about this. So I finally got to finish the Steve Martin Pink Panther 2. And now I'm done with this. 11 movies in. It was a fun ride, mostly. It was great when it started and went downhill very, very quickly. As I noted at the beginning, this is a series that's well loved by a lot of people, and I can see why it's contained in the public consciousness over time, but I don't think anyone's really watched a lot of the movies. Now that I have, and now I'm done, thank God. I feel like Inspector Dreyfus every time he thinks that Inspector Clouseau is dead, because of how much he hates him, how much of an idiot he is. And it's just a freedom, though I know that just like Dreyfus, Clouseau probably isn't actually dead. We'll probably get another one of these eventually. Though it's been 2010 or so. I don't know. This came out, yeah, 2009. So it's been 10 years since this piece of crap came out. So maybe we're done with the series. Maybe we'll not see anymore. So Pink Panther 2 is of course the sequel to the previous Steve Martin version of the Clouseau character, in which he's looking for the Pink Panther again after Le Tornado goes to steal who's a international thief, steals a bunch of relics, and then they get together a series of international detectives together to protect the Panther, to look for whoever's the tornado is, and hijinks ensue. Not really. So one thing I will say positively is Steve Martin is really trying. He's trying so hard. It's not quite working, but at least he gives a shit. Everyone else in the movie doesn't seem like they give a crap at all. One of the things I liked about the last movie was Kevin Kline as Dreyfus trying to salvage what he's in. Fortunately, he doesn't return. John Cleese now plays Dreyfus, not even bothering to try and hide his British accent. He's just like, I'm John Cleese, I'm here for the day, I'm done, okay, where's my check? No, to be fair to that, Herbert Lom never really tried to hide his British accent as Dreyfus in the original series, so I really can't get on for that. But he doesn't have a lot to do. He's there to say a couple lines, go, Clouseau, and then fall apart. Also on hand is Andy Garcia, Alfred Molina, and Lily Tomlin, and Jeremy Irons as different characters throughout it, and none of them are really trying. When I saw their names in the credits, saw them show up, I'm like, at least we'll have some attempts at something. But they all just seem empty-eyed and empty-smiled, like, alright, where's my paycheck? Lily Tomlin's scenes are weird because they seem like they're added in later because she doesn't interact with anyone else. She's attempting to get Clouseau to move into the modern age, not saying so many sexist and racist things, to make some really awkward scenes there, as it's just the same thing repeated back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, as she's like, don't say this, oh, don't say this, don't say this, don't say this, and it's back with that. The mystery is super easy to solve, so there's not a lot of fun there to get to the heart of it. The heart of the mystery isn't never really a big part of this series. It's more about the gags that come around it, and here the gags just like the last one in the series are really straightforward. Not a lot of choreography between them, not a lot of good writing to go back and forth. It just kind of just thumps. There's even less effort in this film than there was in the last one. There's a couple points where I did have a few laughs, but not enough to even recommend it in any way. Even people who like the original series of the Pink Panther look and could see what continues. I did listen to the commentary of the first of this new series between the two movies, and God damn, it made me even hate it even more, because they even in it they even said the fart jokes that I bitched about the last time were, they knew that they didn't fit the character, they knew they didn't fit the series, but they decided to do them anyway because they would just kill. And that's like the humor that they're heading towards. They're heading like right to the lowest common denominator, and not even really trying. As much as the Blake Edward ones became crap by the end, there was some sort of effort being done to stay away from that. Just it didn't work. The timing was off. The character work was off. But there was still not the attempt to just do a fart joke and call it a day, or I mispronouncing something, which is a joke from the original series, but it doesn't translate very well now because they just ram it into the ground over and over and over and over and over again. Eventually you laugh, right? So this series has come to an end. There's a lot of cartoons to watch on this box set. There's 9 discs of that, but I've made through 11 movies. I'm not gonna review the cartoons. I'm just gonna watch them as I probably do other things, because there's like 125 Pink Panther cartoons and then a couple discs of some other things. And overall, this series, Shot in the Dark, was amazing, really funny, still holds up, is a great film. Then rounded in the Pink Panther, the Trail of the Pink Panther, Pink Panther, Return of the Pink Panther, etc. So all right, and then from Return onward, or maybe I got Return and Trail mixed up, or Curse of, whatever, it really just goes downhill. By the time we get to Curse of the Pink Panther and Son of the Pink Panther, it's really hit rock bottom. They come up a little bit better in these two thanks to Steve Martin, but the humor around it is crap. So he's interesting to watch, even if the jokes aren't good. So it's a series of 1 amazing movie, 3 or 4 pretty solid movies, and then about 6 crap. But thank you for watching. If you did watch all the way through, I love you. And what series should I watch next? I have a couple lined up that I've begun into, and we'll see where things go for April. This should be up March 5th. Coming up will be Stephen King retrospective begins in a couple days from now. So check that out. I don't know when you're watching this, if you're actually watching this at all. Go to cityofgeek.com, facebook.com/cityofgeek, Twitter @cityofgeek. Find us on SoundCloud, on iTunes for our podcast, and everything we also got going on. So like, share, and subscribe, and let me know what movie series I should delve into next. Thanks.